All right, here we go. The long-awaited Ep.5. Um, it's been a minute. It's been a couple months. It's been almost well. It's been since what? March, April. I think since April, the last episode went up. Um, so a lot's happened in my life. I've done a lot of things. A lot has happened, um, and I've done a lot of soul searching. Just trying to figure out the things going on. Oh shit, that's loud. Oops. Um, but you know, I'm just gonna do this just first take. I'm not gonna re-record anything. I'm not gonna try and edit it too much, and hopefully this just isn't as long as it normally is. And hopefully I can do this with more frequency. But um, and also I guess I'm planning on changing the format from what was to what I plan to do moving forward. Um, yeah. So before it was like I was trying to just stay topical with the news, uh, both political, cultural, um, sort of trying to blend it together, and I guess give one my opinion, a little bit of background in case anyone who is listening, may not understand the full context, and then just try and dumb everything down, just so I can understand myself, um, everything that's going on. So I'll be shifting away from that, doing a lot less of that, and I think I'm going to try and go a little bit more broad in scale, I guess, um, where instead of focusing in on specific topics that come throughout the weeks or months or whatever, go a little bit more broad with like I, the ideas and the themes of just life in general. Um, and so, you know, as much as I'd love to go in the details of everything that's happened since April, I think the last episode, um, I won't bore anyone with the details, um, because it's a lot, and maybe for another day, another story time. Um, so for today or tonight, it's already pretty late. We're gonna get into, I guess, the first topic, which I guess stems everything else. Um, because really, once you go with what I want to get into, you really can just go into anything. So the first thing I wanted to get into, um, is really just, I guess, just talking about the human experience and what that really is. Um, and it's fascinated me for such a long time, just understanding what it means to be human, um, and what makes us so special. What differentiates us from every other species on the planet. Um, and the immediate answer that comes to mind for a lot of people is that we have a certain level of intelligence that other species don't have. We're able to manipulate our environment, and there's no other species on the planet that's able to manipulate the environment like we can. And so, you know, dolphins, whales, um, jellyfish, like these are smart creatures, but they don't have the capacity to melt iron and forge metals and like create fire and do the stuff that we as humans can do, and what we have done throughout history, where we take material resource and transform it to better our situation, our conditions, and whatnot. And while that is very much an aspect of it, it's not. It doesn't capture the entirety of the human experience. Um, and so I just did a simple Google search, and just to see what Google says about what the human experience is. And so I guess we'll just read it together. The human experience is a term for the realities of human existence, including the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical characteristics of human life. Um, and I think it's a bit of a silly definition that, Google throws out, and this is from Simplicable. Um, Here from Wikipedia, the human condition can be defined as the characteristics and key events of human life, including birth, learning, emotion, aspiration, morality, conflict, and death. Um, and right, just trying to answer what is the meaning of life is an age-old question, which every philosopher under the sun is trying to answer. Of why humans exist, why live. You wake up every single day, and everyone has a different reason of why they wake up. You know, some people share or have similar reasons. Some people wake up to go to work because they need to make money to put food on the table for their family. Um, some people aren't even thinking about it. Some people are just going through their day and aren't even thinking about why they're doing what they're doing. But nonetheless, still going through the routine and just out of habit, um, you're just going through it. And the meaningfulness of what you do is dependent on whether or not you have a why, essentially a purpose in life. Um, you know, Religion has played a key role in giving purpose to individuals and groups of people, and in the name of religion, a lot has been done, good or bad. That's not for me to determine. Um, but you know, I think the difference between a life with purpose and a life without purpose is very apparent, especially in today's modern world where there's a lot of purposelessness, where especially with a lot of younger males who just can't seem to figure it out. Um, I'm 25. I would be considered a young male in today's era. Um, and so, how do I fight off the same issues plaguing many of my peers, where they feel as though they're not getting anywhere in life, they're not doing anything important? Um, you know, a lot of people are just like perfectly fine playing video games all day, doing drugs, just you know, fucking around, really not caring about much else other than themselves and like getting that next hit of pleasure or dopamine or whatever it is that they're chasing at, whatever high they're chasing. um, and then next thing you know, you're 30 years old, and what do you have to show for it? And even with um, women, you see that there's been such a push for women to go in the workforce and stay single and put off having a family. And then you see these videos popping up on social media saying like, you know, I'm 30, no one wants to date me. You know, I want a family, but no one wants to be with me, or I can't have kids now, or whatever the case, whatever the complaints are. But these complaints are on both sides, um, where as a society we've isolated from each other, where it's hard for men to just pick themselves up and be men. And even then, it's like, what does it mean to be a man? I remember being in middle school, and I was just so angry with my dad because that's all I ever heard was like, dude, just be a man, like man up, grow a pair, like all these sayings that you hear as a boy growing up, just to just like tough it out and fucking who cares? No one cares about your feelings, and when you do show your emotions, it's like quit being a bitch, right? Um, and in middle school, when I had blown up on my dad, I was just so angry with all of that, machismo, all that masculine, just like I, I was fed up with it at some point. That I remember telling my dad like, I'll never be the man that you want me to be. And I look back on it, and it's like I cringe a little bit now, thinking about it. Um, but I remember being at that moment that it's hard. It's hard being that tough dude 24/7. That where you don't talk about your problems, where you don't open up and all the hardships in life, you just deal with it. You just suck it up and be a man. And that's, you know, for all the harm, emotionally and spiritually and mentally that it does to someone to have to isolate their inner self from the people in their lives. Um, it's not without the benefits, and there's a balance to be struck, right? For better or for worse, my dad, he would discipline me. I never saw my dad really open. No, I mean, I would see my dad get angry a lot, um, but I don't, I never really saw my dad cry until like I was in like late high school, and I forgot what it was about. Um, but I never really saw my dad cry, and now that I have my own daughter, it's like I don't want my daughter to see me cry. I only ever want to put out a strong image for my daughter, and you don't get that unless you have that mentality of just like, shit sucks. Life is not fair. And you just gotta suck it up. And for some people, they see that type of man, that type of masculinity is toxic. And I'm not gonna sit here and say it's the most healthy thing you can do in your life, um, because what we find is that isolating yourself, even from those close to you, um, it just it drives a wedge, and you're better off having those close connections, being very careful with who you pick and who you associate yourself with, to the degree where you can have a space where you can open up. And if you are going through the struggle, that you either have some sort of camaraderie, some brotherhood, or some group, or whatever it is, that everyone can share, maybe not specific stories or specific examples, like, hey, we're in this together. As men, shit sucks. We don't have the opportunity to just go home and cry. Um, Whenever we want, but we still need to be strong, and then just to have that space where you can do that, um, it creates one, just deeper connections with those whom you're able to do that with, um, and it sort of alleviates, I guess, some of the bad traits that come along with that, hyper masculine attitude. And so, I myself understand, and Jesus Christ, let's try again. I am of the opinion that there should be an understanding that life sucks, and you just gotta suck it up, Buttercup. You know, but one ought to not neglect their feelings and their mentality, whether it be with your spouse, your partner, your significant other, whatever form that takes. You should be at least be able to open up to them. And for anyone who doesn't have a significant other who they go to, their best friend, a religious leader, but someone who they can go to, and just like, here are my problems. Here's what I'm going through. Shit sucks. Even even if all they do is just listen, sometimes that's even then, like that could just be enough. Because I find myself even on some days where shit sucks, man. It's hard. Just being alive sucks, dude. It's not easy. If it was if it was easy, everyone would do it and everyone would have a good time doing it. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And so we're all the main character in our own stories, and we're all going through something. And maybe some people really do have it harder than others. Um, but as far as you're concerned, the hardest thing you've ever done is the hardest thing you've ever done. And so it doesn't matter how hard other people really have it. Sure, you can get some, you know, perspective and whatnot, but if you've never done or been through what someone else has been through, you can only empathize to a certain extent until you have that firsthand experience. Like, oh, now I know in great detail what this experience is like. Um, and so if the hardship you've gone through is relatively not that hard, sure, to you it was the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. But then when you meet some other people who are maybe a little bit more callous or maybe a little bit wiser, or they just hold themselves a little bit differently because relative to you, the things they've gone through are a lot harder, a lot worse. Um, you know, they're just gonna be different people, and being able to understand that difference sort of helps alleviate some miscommunications that happen when, um, hey, I've been through this, so I get what it's like, and it's like, no, you haven't. You have no idea what I've gone through. You have no idea what I'm saying. It's flying right over your head. Um, you know, it doesn't exclude people from being able to talk about experiences and like, hey, let me tell you about this. So you may not be able to understand it 100%, but let me catch you up to speed so that way you have an idea and maybe you can learn something without having to go through all of it in great detail. Um, but but yeah, so you know, there's that old saying that hard times create strong men, strong men create good times, good times creates weak men, and weak men create hard times. Um, and there's a theory of the fourth turning, where every so many generations you have this cycle where you get the good times and then you get the bad times. Um, and it's this cycle of just like you get the good times create weak men that aren't able to maintain the the foundation that created the good times, and so the men bred in the good times create bad conditions that then create hard times, and in the face of adversity, the strong will survive, and the strong will rise to the occasion and fix the problem, and then you get better conditions. Um, so among many intellectuals, um, not me, I'm not an intellectual. Um, we do find ourselves in a time where, you know, relative to the rest of the world, we got it pretty good, and you know, it's hard to have adversity when things are just so good. And I'm not gonna sit here and be like everyone has got it good. You know, it's relative. Certain parts of our country are just not as good as others. Um, whether it be you're living in parts of Los Angeles, you know, cities like Detroit, Chicago, um, where in the East Coast, New York, like there's, and those are like clear examples of like There's a lot of bad stuff going on, and even just in the middle of nowhere, um, you, the problems are there, um, whether it be economic, criminal activity, um, or just cultural decay. Um, we it, these problems exist everywhere, but to a certain degree, we have it good. We have running water just right out of the sink. You can go to any McDonald's and just ask for water, and they're gonna give it to you. And there's a McDonald's on like every other corner, or even if it's not a McDonald's, there's just some fast food restaurant. Um, the we have a obesity problem that even the homeless sitting next to the on ramps or the off ramps from the freeways, like you see them and they're like they got pot bellies. I'm just like, okay, the people over in downtown LA, they're living fine. They may not be having, they're not living like kings, but you know, I've been through downtown LA, and they got it set up. They got everything they need. They got their running water, they got their kitchen, they got their living room, they got their little community center or whatever. And not every corner is like super good. Some places are gonna be much worse than others, but you see like, oh my, like this person may be homeless, but they got some setup, and it's like, you feel bad, but it's like, that's some human ingenuity. They got a radio, they got a whole surround sound system, they got all these tarps to set up their little fort, and it's like, man, now I want to make a fort, but then it's like, no, I don't. Um, but with all that being said, relative to the rest of the world, we got it good, and because of that, we don't have a lot of strong men anymore. When you try and think of just strong male role models, um, who comes to mind? Who's a good male role model you can look up to? And of course, your answer is indicative of the type of male you want to be, or if you're a woman, the type of male you wish your partner would be, or something like that. Um, some people find their father, their dad, to be an example of what a good man is. Not everyone. Um, whether it be someone like some bodybuilder you find on social media, or some internet influencer, or whatever your answer is of what a good male role model is. You gotta ask yourself, what is it about them makes them a good role model? What is their quality and characteristic? And so the rise of people like Andrew Tate and that whole sphere of men in that sort of genre, in that corner of the internet, what do you find? It's big money, big cars, lots of women, um, and if that's what you want, you know, you then find yourself trying to get there, and how do you get there? What is it that you value to get you to big money, big cars, lots of women? Um, it's going to be different from someone who values someone like, fuck, someone like Joe Rogan, I guess. He's another male our in pop culture that a lot of people do look up to, because you know a lot of people may not agree with his politics or his points of views on a lot of things, but he's a comedian. He's a UFC commentator. And what's that other thing he does? Oh, and he does the podcast. Like that's the thing he's biggest for. Um, and so he, you know, and then even in his podcast, he has a a wide range of people that he talks to. And if you're, so he has, you know, a subject for everyone to listen to. If you're just into like the drugs and stuff, he has a bunch of people that talk about mushrooms and doing drugs and whatnot. If you're into the comedy portion of it, he has a whole bunch. He has a whole bunch of his stand-up comedian friends that he talks to. Um, and so if you're into that, or if you're into like the super cool tactical military stuff, he'll have every once in a while he'll have um, uh, people on that were like ex Navy SEALs or whatever. Um, if you're into politics, he'll every once in a while he'll have some sort of like other podcaster, or he'll have on some politician, or he'll have on some journalist or whatever. Um, and really, I think to encompass all of what Joe Rogan is just a curious individual who knows who he is and does what he wants. And so, if he wanted to, he could stop doing stand-up comedy and stop doing the UFC commentary and just do the podcast and just talk to cool people. But or if he wanted to, he could be just a comedian. If he wanted to, he could be just the UFC commentator and just focus on that. But you know, he does. He's in his own time. Like he'll go hunting, and some people like their whole personality is that they go hunting. And that's also another thing that he does. And so just being able to have all these skills and all these interests, I think is like it is a role model where you should never stop improving yourself. And so even at the age of 50 whatever that Joe Rogan is, like he looks pretty good for his age. He looks really strong. He looks like he can snap a lot of people in half. And just even that physical aspect of just being physically healthy, and he talks about health a lot. Um, maybe not everyone agrees with his view of health, but you really can't argue with someone who's as healthy as he is. So he's got to be doing something right. He may not be an expert, or you may not have the right credentials or degrees, but if you're getting results, where it's got to mean something. And so when he speaks, people listen, and and not for the wrong reason. Like whether it's health, whether it's some take on politics, or one of the other many things he says, it's coming from a place where he has all this background information from all the things that he does, and it's very much like that's what I want to do. Like, get to know who you are yourself, the things that you like to do, and then go do them. And so, part of me, what I like to do is I like to rant. I'll talk all day. If nobody stops me, I'm just gonna keep going. And so for the other episodes, and even this episode, like I'm just gonna go. And I don't know if you can tell in the other episodes, but like towards the end of it, like my throat starts to hurt because I'm just talking so much, and so like my throat starts to get itchy and scratchy, and I start losing my voice towards the end, from just talking so long and continuously. So I'm gonna try to not make this one as long, because I gotta wake up early in the morning. But whatever. It's not like I can't wake up early and not go to sleep early. It's fine. I'm still young enough. I'm still 25. I'll be fine. But anyways, the point being that the example of Joe Rogan as one male role model that someone could look up to, where know who you are, know what you like, and go do it. Um, some of the people that he has on, I think, are better than others for like this topic in general, about talking about what it means to be human and how you can live your life to the degree where you're living your life and not just living, right? Um, we had a uh, we had someone at work who had a sign above their door that said "Live on purpose," um, and at first it may not make sense, and he explained it like so many people are just going through the motions and really don't have a reason of why they're doing what they're doing. Um, and even if what you're doing is not like crazy important, it could just be something simple as like, you know, your the hours of 9 to 10 at work, from your 9 to 5, the hours of 9 to 10, like, that first hour, what are you doing? Some people are just like settling in. They got their morning coffee, or they got their breakfast, or if they already ate and had breakfast and got their morning ready, like they're just settling in, figuring out what they got to do for the day, and then moving forward. But if you're, and this is just an example, but the idea of like, don't just go through the motions. Like, just because this is what you do every single day, are you going through the motions just because this is what you do, or is there a purpose of I'm doing this and this and this because I'm trying to get to this end goal, um, you know, or are these little things in between kind of just filler until you figure out what it is that you like or what it is that you want? Are you even thinking about that question, like what it is that I want? What is the end goal? What does that look like? How do I get there? And then, once you start asking yourself these questions, and you start, you may not even come up with an answer right there on the spot. These are, questions about, your life. Like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna put your energy into? For what? And is it worth it? And depending on what your answer is, what it is that interests you, you'll want to you'll want to have the right mindset, where if it's a really big lofty goal, something crazy, that seems almost unachievable, but there's a small chance you could do it, and that small of enough chance is enough for you to say, I want to do it. Do you have the right mindset? Are you going to give up at the first hurdle? If you do, then maybe you need to change your goal. But if you're the type of person where all I need is that little bit of chance, and so long as there's a chance, it's a small chance, but it's there. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna go for it. That's what I want to do. That's what I like. And it doesn't matter how many hurdles. It doesn't matter how many brick walls. It doesn't matter how many mountains. I will move heaven and earth. I will do anything I need to do. I will walk over broken glass. I will crawl on flaming coals. I don't care what it is that I have to do. But I will get to the end. Right? Do you have that mindset? Not every goal requires that mindset. If it's a short-term goal and it's like not that hard, or it's not that big, like if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. But you more or less want to go in this direction. You may not need to have this like all or nothing, like I'm all in, and then this crazy drive to just like go, and there's no room for error. Um, and then, moving on to the emotional, you know, aspect. As as much as we're taught as men to not feel your emotions and just push them down, or just, you know, bottle them up and forget about it, or whatever it is that, we typically as men are taught to be, um, you find all too often, like, a lot of men are emotionally stunted because of that. And it's like, they have a hard time connecting with their significant others, or even with other dudes, because it's like, hey, if we're in this together, but how do I even talk about that? How do I even tell another dude, like, hey, we're both in this together, we're both struggling together, when we don't even have the capacity to even start that conversation? It's like, hey, we're both going for the same goal, and it's not a competition. I want us both to make it. There is more than enough room for both of us to make it to the end and achieve our goal. But how do I even open up to you to say, hey, we're in this together, and together we will be strong, and together we will make it as brothers, right? Do you have that emotional capacity? Do you have the communication skills? Just the ability to just say, hey, I don't know about you, but this shit's hard, right? Um, I don't know what I got myself into, but now I'm in it, and I don't know what to do. And ideally, whoever you're on this journey with to achieve your goal or whatever is like, hey, I thought I was the only one. Um, I'm glad to know I'm not in this alone. You know, we'll figure this out, and hopefully by the end, we're both gonna be successful. We're both gonna make it. And if I figure something else out, I'll tell you. And if you figure something out, tell me. Um, and just having that, like, you know, if that's the case, where it's like you can reach out to someone and they'll and have that friendship, and just that connection where it's like, even then it's like a part of it is, even when you're talking to someone else, a part of it is you talking to yourself, just trying to process your own thoughts and feelings, and like trying to sort of sense where you're at yourself. Because sometimes you'll say something, or something will be said to you, um, and it'll hit you a way you didn't think before. And um, and I'm sure many people have just like said something that they didn't mean to say, and it's like, where did that come from? Because it didn't come from nowhere. You know, in certain instances, sure, it's an accident. Um, I meant to say this, but I said this on accident. But when you say something and it feels like it came out of nowhere. It's like, did it really? Um, did it really come out of nowhere, or is this something you've thought about maybe at least once, but ignored it because you didn't like it? Um, and then you just gotta like do those mental gymnastics with it, and then you have your pre-existing ideas, and then you have this new idea, and you gotta let them fight it out, and whatever comes out at the end, whether it's a mixture of the two or just one or the other. Um, and sometimes you find that out by just being able to talk things through with someone else. Um, so, as much as there is a need for bottling emotions and just saving all of that, um, and keeping it to yourself, there is a time and a place where you where you can reach out, you can open up, and it's beneficial to have those moments, those conversations. Um, I guess I'll just continue on. Just um, where you're at spiritually, a a man who believes in nothing believes in everything, and so the while the big religions are not going anywhere, you know, Judaism, Christianity, uh, the Islamic religion, and I think those are like the big three. Um, you got Buddhists, and um, you know, there's a bunch of different religions out there, but those are like the big ones, and those aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Um, but one of the bigger uh, choices of religion that's growing is no affiliation, atheists, just non-believers in general, and this move away from religion is similar. Like it's not one for one, but the connection to one's spirituality is like it's there. Um, Whatever it is you pray to or whatever it is that you believe in, um, it the hole that fills is all the same. Um, for the longest time in human history, for as far back as it goes, humans believe in something. There's some overarching thing that humans believe in, whether it's some god, whether it be multiple gods or whatever it is. And a part of that is, along with the human experience, for these different aspects of it, I think it's important or a key uh, distinction as to what we are as humans and what these experiences are. Um, because you have philosophers say that humans are born good, and it is the world that corrupts us. And then you have a different philosopher that will say, no, humans are born good, or I'm sorry, as you are, humans are born evil, and it is through civilization that we are made good. And the third, like, predominant theory of how humans are is that humans are born as a blank slate, and you can shape them and mold them to however you want to be. Oops. And there's a whole bunch of arguments, and I found that none of them really answer a lot of the questions as to why we do what we do, whether it is because we're born evil, or it is because we're born good, or because we're born blank. I think one answer that I've come to, and maybe it's not even an original idea, but because there's multiple answers, and I'll get into some of them that I agree with more than those three. But that humans are born to be efficient creatures, and so it's not necessarily what's right and wrong, what's good and bad, but what's going to benefit me. And then you start getting you start bringing up examples like, is it wrong to steal? And it's one of the 10 Commandments in the Christian religion that you're not supposed to steal. But then you get something like, if a dad has no money and no food, and he's trying to feed his kids, is it wrong for him to steal so that he can feed his kids? And some people are still going to say yes, it is wrong to steal. And some people are going to say no, it's not wrong to steal. What he's doing is a noble act in trying to feed his daughter or son or his kids, whatever. The that ambiguity. Like it's not exactly yes or no. Like because of the situation, like arguments are there to be made, and because there are arguments to be made, it's not exactly clear. Then is it? If you can argue one side or the other, then it's not necessarily as clear cut as one may seem. Um, and so, you know, in this hypothetical, the efficient thing for that dad to do is to just go steal a piece of bread, like go steal some food. It's not out of malice towards the owner of a store or the owner of the food or whatever, but out of that instinctual parental instinct to feed your kids that you're going to go and steal. And so it's not, even if it's like, even if the dad's like, I shouldn't do this, but I need to, that that internal dialogue is another symbol of like, it's not always about being born good or being born bad, but hey, I need to do this. I need to do this for my kids. Um, and when you look through the lens that people are doing things for themselves, you can like it also explains why people work in groups, because you would think, oh, if I work in a group, then that's not being selfish. But if what you do benefits the group, you are then able to be benefited from the group itself. And so it's like a feedback where the more effort I put into the group as a whole can then benefit me. Um, and oh shit! Oh man, it's getting late. Um, right, you the um, it, man, I can't think of a clear example, but um, I'm sure someone else can think of something. But just the idea of like, if you're going to be selfish in a group, very quickly the group's going to turn on you, and you're not going to be able to benefit from being connected with a bunch of different people. But if you get good with the group, you put good effort, or you say the right things, or just you're a good faith actor in a group trying to accomplish a goal, or just in agreement, you are then able to benefit from being a part of that group. Where if everyone's giving in, everyone's putting in a little bit into a common goal with the group, and all you do is take, like very quickly, people are gonna realize like this dude's not, he ain't it, and you get kicked out or just ostracized, something like that. Um, and you know, again, it's looking through the lens of humans being born efficient creatures, and so while in the immediate short term, if you just go up to a group and just immediately take, sure, you can immediately take then, but in the long run, you're going to be left out hanging to dry, and you're not really going to benefit. And so it would behoove you to play nice with groups. And the efficient thing to do would be to not be selfish, so that way in the future, or when the opportunity arises, you can then benefit. Um, and, just this that is just another way of looking through the lens of humans being born efficient. It's one way to explain why it is people do what they do. Um, the other one that I find that also is more compelling than um, some of the older ideas is that humans are not rational creatures, but they're rationalizing creatures. And so the difference is that it's easy to think that people think with their brains because we have brains, and our brains are a lot bigger, especially the front part of our brains, all the meat that's up here. Um, that because we're capable of thinking rationally and logically that we always do. In fact, we almost never do. Um, in fact, what we do is we tell ourselves stories about what it is that we did to help make sense of the world as we're going through it. Um, and so, even if you're doing something you don't agree with, or you're doing something you don't like, or you're doing something you don't understand, your brain's going to find a way to make sense of it because you're doing it anyways. And your brain has to make sense of it somehow. Shit. Anyways, and so then, looking through this sort of lens, it makes sense why you look at someone and not everything they're doing makes sense to you, but to them it makes total sense. They already have their narrative about themselves and what they're doing already in their head, and it's like, no big deal. But to you, it's like they do this and they do this, and these two things don't align, and these two things are like at odds with each other. Like, it doesn't make sense. And of course, it doesn't from a rational point of view. When you put logic into things, sometimes things don't add up. Things just don't make sense. But if you're able to take logic out of, like, it makes more sense when you don't think about it, type of thing, right? The less you think about it, the more it makes sense. That's more or less where we're at. Like, it makes sense to me because I already made the connections to where I can do this and then this and then this, which lets me do this. And so it's not exactly a straight line from A to B. There's a whole bunch of stops in between, which lets you get to B, and then A and B are the same, or the dots are there. And I get into this whole side tangent, right? That's essentially what this whole thing is. It's a whole side tangent, because whatever lens you want to look at humans through, whether it's that we're born good, or we're born evil, or we're born blank, or we're born efficient, or we're born to just tell ourselves the stories we need to hear so that we can make sense to ourselves. Whatever it is, that sort of background sits behind everyone. And so whatever it is that you find... Oh my God. I need to go to bed. Jesus Christ. I'm going to keep going. But anyways, that background sort of sits behind everyone. And so however you see someone else, and once you, or whatever assumptions you make those the same assumptions about yourself, even if you don't think so. And so to me, like, all the things that I'm doing and all the things that I think make sense to me, like, I've already thought it through. I've already made all the logical conclusions that if this is true and this is true, then this must be true. And from the perspective of someone else, it may not be. Or, it just depends on, who is your creator? Through what lens are you looking the world through? Are you morality is relative? Morals are relative to other morals, and so while we have ideals and morals here in our culture, they're different somewhere else, and it's okay that they have it somewhere else, like that's what they're used to. Or are you more of a, this is what's right and this is what's wrong? Well, this is right, over there is wrong. And just being able to, one, have that answer of where you stand, it sort of helps you align sort of everything else, right? If you look through life through the lens of, through Christianity, um, right? Or it would say that all of every man, every woman is a sinner. We're all evil. We all need to atone for our sins, um, and the only way to do so is through Christ, or through God, whatever denomination you are, if that's what you are. But you know, we're all sinners, and we need to fix that. And you can then, once you know where you're at, you can then align your ability to emotionally connect with that, and then you can also have your mindset be aligned with your view of the world, so that way things just make sense in your life, and there's no confusion, or there's no uh, dissonance between, like, this is what I believe in, but this is my typical train of thought, and my train of thought will start going, and then I run into this brick wall that is my belief system, and when I get to this point, I don't know what to do. Like, I give up, or whatever. Um, but um, just being able to answer these questions for yourselves, for yourself, so that whatever it is that you do, you're making that deliberate, intentional decision making, where um, where you can live on purpose, right? Where you're not just doing things just to do, or you're not just saying things just to say, or you have these beliefs because you heard them once. It's because these are you, and you are these ideas. And sure, ideas can change, and you should be willing to change your ideas over time, um, just as you get older and you learn new things, and yeah, um, you shouldn't be stuck in your ways, but nonetheless, having some sort of set foundation, right? Um, where what you do is you. Um, and just getting into the last aspect of just your physical characteristics. So this is your health, and then just your overall body, but the mind and the body are linked so closely together that it's one. You don't have mind without body, and you don't have body without mind, because they influence each other so closely, um, that you'll find that people who are overweight and they lose weight, their emotional well-being gets better, their mental uh, stability, just all these benefits in the mind from your physical health. And the same thing goes the other way, where um, getting physically unhealthy damages you mentally, and it doesn't seem like it doesn't feel like it, but it's there, and you're just so numb to it at that point, because it's such a slow process and such a slow change that it just seems natural. Um, but for the longest time, you know, people or humans did not live in houses, right? Um, there was a lot more just physical activity on a day-to-day basis, not that much long ago. Um, and so we do very much live a sedentary lifestyle as a whole. Um, Even myself, I would consider myself to be somewhat fit. I've lost a lot of weight. I've gained a lot of muscle. I've changed myself physically. I don't know if it shows on camera, um, but like I look at myself in the mirror, I don't recognize myself anymore. Like my face is slimmed down, and like it feels like the shape of my face has changed. Um, and then when I look in the mirror, it's like I'm so used to seeing a fat body that when I look at myself in the mirror, it's like I didn't think I'd ever look like this. It, all those super badass people you see at the gym or, at school or whatever, or work, and people that are just like ripping out of their uniform or whatever. Um, I never thought I'd get to that point. Now I'm not crazy strong or, ripping out of shirts just from flexing, but I look at myself and it's like I'm the person I used to envy. Like I used to look at people who were like gym rats and like, damn, I want to look like that. I want to do that. Where, without even flexing, like you can just see the size of muscles and whatnot. Um, Again, I'm not crazy strong. I'm not crazy built. Um, I've lost about 20 pounds, um, and my physique has changed. Um, and I know that with that change in myself, like mentally, I've changed, and so where I'm at, or my ability to handle external events and handle my own emotions and stuff, like it's different. And I've had a lot of stuff go on lately, and I don't know how I would have handled everything if I was fat and just unhealthy. I mean, well, yeah, I guess I was not, man, I was about 198. I was almost 200 pounds. Um, so like, I guess I was unhealthy. I may not like to. I would at 198. I would tell myself that I'm relatively healthy. Um, but I mean, looking at myself now, it's like no, I wasn't. Um, you know, I'll put on like a heavy backpack, and it's like I used to weigh this much, like every day, and now it's like I'll put on a heavy backpack, and it's like, man, that's a lot of weight. I used to just carry around this. Um, you know, Trying to do pull-ups at almost 200 pounds is a lot harder than trying to do pull-ups when you're like 177. Um, of course, muscle building helps, but just that weight difference is apparent. And so, you know, again, like with all the stuff that's gone on in my life, I don't know how I would have been able to get through everything and just process everything. Because even now, it's like, you know, with everything that's happened, and um, I'm I, I'm in a better spot now than I was a couple months ago. Um, you know, I can process I can process the thoughts, I can process the emotions myself, and not just stuff it in a bottle and just like forget about it. Like sit with it, think about it, feel it. Okay, now what? Um, why am I feeling like this? What brought this to me? Um, and what am I gonna do about it? Is there something I can do about it? Are these feelings, are they valid? Sometimes it's like, you sit on something and then you realize like, well, that's not true. Now was it? Like, I was panicking over nothing. I was freaking out over nothing. So, um, but where I'm at now, it's easier to do all that. When before, maybe I would have just, you know, stuff, just not paid attention to it. Paid attention to it. I would have just not cared about it. I would have just, pushed it all down and just tried to ignore it. Or I would, or maybe I would have just broken down and just not be able to handle anything. Um, you know, I'll never know because I plan to not let myself go. Um, you know, physically I'm in a better spot, so mentally I'm in a better spot, and um, it's not been easy, both physically and then just having to deal with life in general, but it's it's not as hard as it could be. Um, I'm better than I was, and I think that's really the bow on top of everything. Just mentally, emotionally, I'm not freaking out. I'm not losing my marbles. I may have a couple screws loose, but who doesn't, right? If there's not something wrong with you, then there's a reason to be suspicious. Um, but at least in myself, as vague and as generic as a definition this is, um, because it uses the term in the definition. What is a human experience? It's the term for human existence, of human life. Well, that doesn't really answer the question now, does it? Um, but trying to get into the weed. Well, we're not really getting into the weeds. I'm kind of like brushing with broad strokes, um, over some of these things. Um, but um, you know, being able to at least have that self-talk, the ability to look inward at oneself, is where, right. That's where the money's made. That's where the real development is made. That's where you go from being, immature, just some like dude that's just not there, that just doesn't have it, to that guy. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I'm that guy, because I'm not. Um, but I'm not every other dude. I know that much. Um, part of it is just the things I've gone through and the things that I know. A part of it is my ability to talk to myself and realize, where did I fuck up? Where did I go wrong? What's my fault and what's not my fault? Where are the things in life that I can change? Where can I be better? Where can I improve myself for myself? And where can I improve things so that way I can be better for other people in my life? Um, right. All of these aspects are components of what it means to be human. It's the different domains in which we see ourselves, um, and how we interact with the world. Because we are very much irrational creatures. Most of the time, we're not thinking with logic. We're thinking with emotions, and then later, we tell a story that tricks us into thinking, no, we were thinking with the big part of our brain, not the back part, not the little part of our brain. We weren't thinking with our heart. We were thinking with our brain. When maybe in the moment, you kind of just made a rash decision, or you know you just went with your gut, right? And what are those gut feelings other than instincts, feelings? Um, it's not exactly logic every single decision you make, um, and just being able to hone yourself like you would any other craft, to sharpen your edge like a blacksmith does any sword. Um, you know, that's definitely gonna it, it's going to make for a more interesting life, in the very least, where you will be in control of the things you can control. And of the things you can control, hopefully you have understanding of that. Um, and really, you know, it's and I'll read it off before. Oh fuck, that's loud. I gotta. Oh, that scared me. Oh my god. I apologize for that. Um, but anyways, um, I'll finish with this one last thing. What the fuck is this? What are these sound effects? Oh my god. Anyways, what a fucking joke. I needed. Okay, well, add that to the to-do list of these stupid settings. I I just downloaded this browser so that way, fresh, clean slate. Um, so whenever I look stuff up for the podcast, it'll be on a fresh um, browser. I I've not used it before, so this all caught me off guard. And so I apologize if it was loud. If you've lost your hearing, I apologize. Um, but anyways, last thing before we go for the night, or I guess the morning, because it's past midnight at the time of recording. Um, we'll send off with this. If you're not religious, I apologize. It's still good wisdom. If you're a different religion other than Christian, again, I apologize. But nonetheless, the sentiment is good wisdom to take with you in life. And so it goes. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so, you know, the things within your control are going to be yourself. Maybe not 100%, but to a great degree, you have control over yourself. The things you do, the things you say. You may not be able to control the way you feel or the thoughts that come to your mind. But you have the capacity to influence, at the very least, to influence what type of thoughts you have, how you arrive to answers, and then, of course, what you do with those thoughts and what you do with those emotions. You know, and it can be hard. You know, you have such a strong conviction, such strong feelings. And what do? Right? It's hard to not act. It's hard to not want to act when you have such strong feelings. And it's like all you're thinking about. And you can't think about anything else but this thing that's just occupying all your brain space. And that is like the truest test of willpower and strength, is when you're obsessed with this one thing, when all you can think about is this one thing. Can you control yourself? can you practice that self-control and say, I'm okay. I don't need to act on these feelings, these emotions, these thoughts. Because I know firsthand, it's hard. You know, it's not easy. Sometimes you're gonna lose. Sometimes you're going to lose. Sometimes you're going to give in. And, hopefully you can forgive yourself. And if you hurt someone along the way, hopefully they forgive you. But, you just gotta keep going. Your brain's not gonna stop. You just gotta continue to move forward and impact the things within your control. And then for the things outside of your control, we have such a tendency and a need to, maybe not everyone, but I know at least for me, the need to control as much things in your life as possible. And just that feeling of control, of like having influence, and just, it's reassuring. It's almost like a safety net where, because you felt as though you had an impact, that you can control these things, that you're gonna be okay. But we definitely overestimate the things we do control, the things we do have influence and impact on. And then when reality slaps you in the face, and you start getting a panic attack, or just anxiety, or just you start feeling uneasy, just hopefully you remember that the things you can't change are beyond your control. Just gotta let them be. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. You'll figure it out. You always do. So when we come to terms and realize that we're gonna be okay with the things we can't control, the things we can't change, it frees up our space for things we do control, things we do have an impact on. And, hopefully it makes us better. And really, the glue that holds it all together is being able to know that difference. Because we do overestimate the things that we think we can control. And maybe we underestimate the things we can control. We think, oh no, I can't change that, I can't fix that, when really you can. And then, the things that are out of your control, you think you can and you can't. Just, being okay with the things you can't control, the things outside of your reach, being okay with yourself when those things happen. It's not easy. It's not. But it's not supposed to be. So I know I said I was gonna leave with this, but I guess one last thing. I forgot where I heard it, but it's been ringing with me for a little bit, and so anyone listening, I hope it sits with you too. But it goes something along the lines of, damn, anything, anything or anyone that is easy is probably not worth the effort. Anyone or anything that is worth the effort is not going to be easy. Right? I think that's how it goes. I'll say it again, just so I know, at least for myself. Anything or anyone that is easy is not going to be worth. It's not worth it. It's probably not worth it. Anyone or anything that is worth it is not going to be easy. So, that's been sitting with me for a little bit now, and you know, maybe it's not going to ring with you. Maybe it's not for you, but it's been with me, and I thought, just as a last little send off for tonight, I'll give you that. But I hope you've enjoyed. It's been a long time coming. I've been meaning to make this episode for a cool minute, and I finally got around to doing it. And hopefully, I can do this a little bit more frequently. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed. If you have ideas, let me know. I'm more than happy to discuss something in great length, and just ramble. I don't even know what I want to talk about most of the time when I do this. It's kind of just whatever comes to mind. And sometimes I'll learn something about myself, or I'll make connections myself. But if you have ideas, let me know. If you like it, let me know. I plan to do it more this way, where it's not so much topical, but it's very much like big picture, and then kind of like break it down. Of course, I'm gonna give my 2 cents, but yeah. For anyone listening, thank you. Just especially with this episode, being that it's a different format, it's really just me opening up more so, a little bit more than I did before, about my opinions, my ideas, my way of thinking. So, thank you for listening. And if you're going through anything, and you probably are, because we all are, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna figure it out. You're smarter than you know. You're stronger than you know. You may not see it. You may not think it. And, but someone in your life sees it. Someone knows that you're smart enough. And I know you'll figure it out. So, I don't know if this Twitter comes across, but nope. No, it's backwards. Cool. But you're enough. So, with all that, I guess I'll see y'all in the next episode. So, thanks, and I'll see y'all later.